I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to.
Hello everyone, friends. In this video, I will tell you about the most important thing, about how I bought an apartment in Bali for $37,000. Actually, that's not the most important thing. It wasn't me who bought them, it was my spouse who purchased them. That is, we were choosing a property for her because she had a small amount of her own money, which was about $40,000. And so we chose an apartment in Ubud and bought it. Today we are signing the contract, and you will also see it once it is signed. I will definitely post this video in shorts. And in fact, that's not even the main point. It doesn't matter who bought it, and it doesn't matter for what amount. The most important reason why we chose these particular apartments, why exactly them? What is the main criterion for you to decide in favor of one property or another? What should be taken as a basis? In this video, I will answer once and for all what the most important criterion is when choosing real estate for investment in Bali. But before we move on to the main topic of this video, I would like to simply thank the universe for the opportunity to be in this wonderful place with these amazing people and partners. It's just that, Bali is like a hub of incredibly interesting people. It is some kind of horizon of opportunity that is open right now, and, it radiates energy that you can draw from, use, and carry out into the world. It's true, because we just went to Ubud, and I am currently here, by the way, in a really cool place. We met a very interesting person. The movie Eat, Pray, Love was filmed at his hotel. This is the kind of man, what's the point? I just constantly meet interesting people like this in Bali. And these can be people aged 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 55, and they are all incredibly interesting. Each one has their own unique quality, and each is useful in some way. And I don't know of any place in the world that is filled with such a diverse array of incredibly interesting people in their respective fields. I don't know. If you know, please tell me where there is another wonderful island. Such a wonderful place. In general, it was an ode to the island, a kind of gratitude to the universe. This is truly the case because as I look back, I realize that it is essential to approach everything with gratitude. And returning to the topic of the narrative, what do many people pay attention to when purchasing real estate in Bali? Firstly, when you buy real estate in Bali, you must understand that you are not buying it forever. In other words, you are purchasing it as a business, not for yourself. There are even some for personal use, but in any case, this is less than 1%, so we do not take them into account. We only consider actual investors. An investor should only be interested in one thing: how much they will earn. However, many investors, whether beginners or intermediate, tend to evaluate things like the windows, the building, whether they like the interior or not, and what features are present. Friends, you shouldn't worry about this. You should only be concerned about one thing: how much you will earn. That is, the return on investment. This is the main factor. I have mentioned it many times, but in this video, I will reveal another useful coefficient that you should always apply when determining whether to invest in this property or that one, all else being equal. I will elaborate on this a bit more later. Everything in order, one by one. So for example, when we evaluate a particular property, whether it is worth investing in or not, including for my investors, or to put my own money into it, I always calculate it like this. First of all, there is an understanding of the ROI from the developer. That is, they provide a table with clear indicators of profitability, but I don't believe in them. Well, that's the kind of person I am, meaning that everything the developer sends me, I double check myself. And this is the practice I have come to. This is not fiction, it's purely statistics. No claims against anyone, it's just practice. Don't even waste your time on this. I'm just telling you that I've already wasted mine. Use my developments. I calculate the profitability of each property, including rent, expenses, and so on, all by myself. Regardless of whether the developer has it or not, whether he gives it to me or not, I calculate everything myself. And after that, I make an assessment, a conclusion, for myself, for my investors, and for those people who reach out to me, and in most cases, when it comes to large developers in Bali. I don't know where they get their figures on profitability, probably from their heads. I will tell you that most of their projects do not stand up to any criticism in terms of profitability. In other words, everything you see in the summary tables needs to be divided by half. And this will be roughly what you can expect in reality. That is, if they say you will earn 15 to 17% net per year, feel free to divide that by 2, and that will be the truth. This applies to major developers. I won't list them, as everyone knows them well. If we talk about small and medium-sized developers, you won't hear about them from the media, because the information space is occupied by these market giants, so to speak. So their actual return on investment is somewhere around 15-20%, but you can only learn about them if you contact a real estate agency that is aware of all the details regarding new developers, where they are building, what properties are available, and so on, because it's difficult to obtain this information easily. There are many factors to evaluate, and you have to sift through a lot of information to ultimately find a decent and worthy developer. Therefore, I recommend reaching out to some reputable agencies that can provide you with comprehensive information regarding your inquiry about the real estate market in Bali. You should formulate your request as follows. You can contact us or any other agencies, but fundamentally, it should be like this. I have $200,000. Where can I invest them most profitably? And you should listen to their opinion because they are market professionals. Well, if we are talking about true professionals in the market, right? And when they send you options, you shouldn't say whether you like it or not. It's, how should I put it, concerning that you don't like it. But if it can potentially bring you 20% per year, what difference does it make whether you like it or not? Here, it's nothing personal, just business, as they say. So how do you calculate the correct coefficient? First of all, let me explain how I do it. I'll tell you now. I take the lowest rental price in a particular area. For example, if a complex is being built in Butubalong, I look at what is available for rent around it and at what price, and I proceed accordingly. I take the minimum cost of similar offers in this area and use it as a basis. There are no cheaper offers at all. And it's unlikely that a new complex can be rented out for less. You understand? The complex is new. Everything there is new, with a pleasant interior. There are also some additional perks, like washing machines and other amenities that are not available in the complex you are comparing it to, and maybe an extra sleeping space. Therefore, this can be considered as a baseline. Multiply by 3.65, then multiply by the approximate occupancy in a good location. We only consider such places because there are hotels in Bali that have a 50% occupancy rate, while there are others that have a 95% occupancy rate. But on average, a good hotel, good in one place or another, has an occupancy rate of about 70-75% throughout the year, out of 75% for the year. This is on average. With a good management company and effective property marketing, this can be increased to 80-85. But we take 0.7 as the base, and we multiply. The minimum rental cost is multiplied by 3.65, then multiplied by 0.7, and we subtract the aggregators, which is around 12 to 15%. Subtract the maintenance cost, which is about, well, if it's, let's say, a unit, an apartment, then it's around $200 a month multiplied by a year. You subtract that. If it's a townhouse, it's about $300 a month. But after that, we also deduct the management company's commission. This usually depends on the complex. It's typically 15 or 20%. It ranges from 12% to 30%, averages 15-20%, it's 12%, and 30% averages 15-20%. All of this you read, and you are left with what you can rely on. And this is a more or less honest, objective calculation that you can make for yourself. You don't need to be a genius to understand this issue. For example, you received a return of 20%. Here we have the Astor complex, for example in Bodibolong, which has a return on investment of about 18 to 20% per year, and this is a good return on your capital. That is why. In a month, we sold about 10 units, 10 apartments, because people clearly understand that this is a new complex and it will rent out well. And by the way, in the complex in Aura, where we are signing the contract and making the payment today, I want to tell you that there were originally 8 units and only 2 are left. If you are interested in buying affordable apartments that will yield you 15 to 17% annual returns on your savings, feel free to write. or call. There are 2 units left at $37,000 each. By the way, I think that after renting them out, their price will increase by about 10-15,000 because there are no such offers on the market. This is the first indicator that should raise a red flag for you if it is low, or you should like it if it is high. But that's not all. The second main indicator, which is even more important than the first, is what this is an indicator of growth, the growth rate of your capital. Perhaps someone has heard of it before, but I will explain why it is so important and how to calculate it correctly. Look, you have a return on investment indicator. You calculated it yourself, okay? But now you need to understand how much this business, this property, will bring you over the period of ownership, because you do not own it forever. That is, it is for a certain period, for 20, 25, 30 or 35 years. How is the growth coefficient of your capital calculated? Profitability, we take the rate 0.2 multiplied by 30 years. 0.2 is multiplied by, because the lease term there is 30 years, well, almost 30, 29. So you have basically a multiplicative coefficient of 0.2 multiplied by 30, which essentially equals 6, right? And minus 1, because you invested this body of investments, your body of investments, the coefficient comes out to be 5. This is the capital return coefficient that I referred to for Aster, which is 5. This roughly indicates how much net capital initially invested will be returned to you over the period of owning this business. It is clear that this is an assumption, and we understand that we are not taking into account certain indicators, depreciation and so on, but this is a very clear and understandable ratio that will allow us to choose one property or another for investment, to make a choice in favor of a particular property. Do you understand? If we take, for example, some other property, for instance, Aster has 30 years of ownership. If we take, for example, the return on investment ratio, it results in a 15% return, right? Another property, let's assume, but there the lease term is 50 years, Astra has 30, while there it is 50. However, Astra has an annual profitability rate of 20%, while there it is only 15. Which one is more profitable? It's simple. Let's calculate. Astra has a capital growth rate of 5, and in another case, let's call it object X, we multiply 0.15 by 50, and we get 7.5. We subtract 1 from our initial invested capital, and it results in 6.5. If Astra has a coefficient of 5, then it is 6.5 there. We subtract 1 from half of our false capital initially, and we end up with 6.5. If the coefficient for Astra is 5, then it is 6.5 in the end. In the end, it is more beneficial for us to choose the property with a higher capital growth rate, even though the return on investment over the year was lower there. Do you understand the meaning, right? If we talk, for example, about a return on investment coefficient of 25% for some property, let's assume, although there are practically none of those on the island, and the lease term is 20 years. Well, that's how it turned out, right? There, you calculate the coefficient like this, multiply 0.25 by 20 years of rent. You have 5 coefficients. We subtract 1. This is what you invested in the capital, and we are left with 4. That is, despite the fact that the annual percentage of your capital's profitability is higher, in the end, you will receive less. In absolute terms, you will receive less cash, meaning your capital will only return 4 times. This is also important. And this is perhaps the most important criterion to pay attention to when purchasing real estate in Bali. It's not just all this talk about what kind of finishing will be done, which management company will be involved, and so on. This is important, of course. There's no need to buy options with mold. That's obvious. We are currently talking about those options that are already inherently good. It is clear that we do not consider bad options at all. But how do you choose from the good ones? For this, you need 2 coefficients. The first return on investment coefficient, known as ROI, usually ranges in Bali from 0.1 to 0.2. A good return on investment ratio is 0.15, 0.18. That is considered good. So it turns out that it brings you a net return of 15-18% annually, That's really great. The second coefficient is the capital growth rate. A good rate is between 4 and 6. If it's lower, it's not worth paying attention to. And it's unlikely to be higher, as those are peak values. Here it should be, from 4 to 6. If so, then of course, it is possible to acquire this property and it is profitable. If it doesn't fall within this parameter, then I wouldn't pay attention to such a property. This is roughly what I wanted to tell you today. In my opinion, this is the most important thing when choosing real estate in Bali. Because in the grand scheme of things, you are all investors and you're buying a business, not real estate for yourselves. If anyone has any questions, feel free to write or call. I am always available. My WhatsApp is on the phone screen or in the first pinned link. Click on it to join me in the chat. Well, that's all for now. This was Pavel Morozov. This is Real Estate Bali. Subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of interesting content ahead. I will be telling, showing, and opening eyes to the truth. Wishing everyone well. May you have more money to cover everything, and health to you and your loved ones. Goodbye to all.
Music is essential, truly indeed.